Welcome to the cutting edge of the global awakening.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence by the military-industrial complex.
Well, it looks like the North Tower of the World Trade Center has just completely collapsed.
The U.S. dollar's status as the preeminent reserve currency is under attack.
This is a mathematical fact. Tens of trillions of dollars are being extracted from the United States of America.
You really want the truth? Then just follow the money.
Welcome to Follow the Money Radio, a broadcast dedicated to your personal, spiritual, and financial liberty. And now, here's your voice of reason in the midst of global chaos, economist and best-selling author, Jerry Robinson.
Friends, welcome to this week's edition of Follow the Money Radio. So grateful to have you along for the ride today. Joining us all around the world. You can find us online on our website at followthemoney.com. So grateful to have you again. Today, we're going to be talking about financial independence. You know, this is a big Independence Day week, right? So right in the middle of the week, we had July 4th. As people stop and remember here in America, the Independence Day. We're going to have something to say about that toward the end of the show today. Our final word is dedicated to that topic of independence. But in particular, I want to focus in this first segment upon financial independence. What a great time to talk about getting free, breaking free financially. You know, so many people find themselves on life's rat race. They're working that job that they don't like. They are stuck with that debt that they really wish they hadn't taken on, and they find themselves in a hopeless situation oftentimes, especially when you look at some of the latest headlines that continue to confirm that Americans just don't know how to handle money, do they? I mean, they get into debt, they can't save money. I mean, it just seems to be a real big problem. And look, we don't learn from high school how to handle money. Even in college, they don't really teach you how to handle money. So you're really kind of on your own. You know, unless your parents gave you really good, wise philosophies upon money, if your family's financial philosophy, you know, did not instruct you in the way to save and to invest and to, you know, take moderate risks whenever necessary, if you never saw that modeled, then you don't really have any example. And you certainly aren't going to learn it in school because they don't teach you even how to write a check, you know, when you go to high school. So it's really the school of hard knocks, you know, that many people have to come around and realize many times after they've taken on lots of debt, or maybe after they've, you know, got themselves in a tight financial situation, that they finally realize, you know what, I compare it to your health. You know, if you've ever met somebody who has had perhaps a heart attack, God forbid, or, you know, some sort of heart problem, and it stopped them in their tracks, you know, suddenly they'll put that pack of cigarettes down. You know, often, not always. I mean, not always, but, you know, sometimes they'll put that pack of cigarettes down, or they'll put that alcohol down, or they'll put all that extra butter and cheese, you know, on their food. They'll be a little smarter with their food decisions. And oftentimes, many people have to have a money heart attack, so to speak, right? Where everything falls apart, bankruptcy, foreclosure, you know, bad credit report or something like that, that really just kind of stops them in their tracks, and they realize this really is important. It's hard to function in today's society without decent credit and without a little bit of money, right? And without a job, or without a plan for that matter, which is the way many people live. So, you know, here at Follow the Money, that's been one of the things we've been focused on ever since day one when we started this podcast back in 2010. I can't believe it's been 7 years now. But back in 2010, when we started this website and podcast, we understood that the economy was based upon debt, and we wanted to get that information out and help people understand that they live in a debt-based world. That really kind of changes your mind about the whole situation when you fully grasp that our money itself is debt, right? When you reach into your pocket and you pull out that wallet and you pull out that dollar bill out of your wallet and you look at the top of it, what does it say? It says Federal Reserve Note, right? What does that mean? That used to say silver certificate, right? It used to say something that had value. $1 silver dollar payable to the bearer upon demand. You could walk in to a bank and trade that banknote for a piece of silver, right? Those days are gone. Today, our money says no longer silver certificate. There's nothing backing it up except the full faith and credit of the federal government. And if you notice at the very top, it says Federal Reserve Note. Federal Reserve Note. What does that mean? Well, if I say that you have a car note, what am I saying? I'm saying that you have a car loan. So a Federal Reserve Note is a Federal Reserve loan, right? So all the money that's in existence, guys, this is ABC 101 here. I mean, this is economics 101. All of the money that's in the United States economy that has been put out there by the Federal Reserve is debt. It's debt. It's nothing but debt. It says it right on the top of it. Federal Reserve Note. It's a debt-based economy. So the first way to stop, digging a hole is to put the shovel down, right? So if you're digging yourself a financial hole, you've got to put the shovel down. You got to realize where you are. You're in a nation that has decided through the Federal Reserve Act of 1913, and of course over several different precedents set along the way, that we are a country who wants debt as money, right? We don't want silver as money. We don't want gold as money. We don't want anything of intrinsic value as money because that's too limiting. That doesn't allow us to print it at will and create a larger economy. We prefer, as a people, apparently, paper money. That is debt-based money that is issued and printed out of thin air that does not have any substantial intrinsic value or backing. Now, it's my suggestion to you that you can break free in such an environment, but I will tell you that it's very difficult to break free in such an environment if you don't understand it, right? If you don't understand that money is debt. I think this also plays into the concept of debt in general. In fact, today what I want to do is I want to go over 7 different steps that you can take to break free financially. Right? Just 7 simple ideas that I'm going to throw out in today's podcast. And each one of them, just a little nugget, I believe a little nugget of truth that'll help you along the way. Let's just run through these in this first segment. Let's begin with number 1. The very first step, and these are not necessarily in any kind of order. I just wrote these down randomly earlier today because I really wanted to share with you financial independence. It was rolling around in my mind. What do you need to be able to break free financially? What do you need? What kind of mental thought? What kind of attitude? Well, the very first step I have here is to learn the difference between good debt and bad debt. It may shock you to know that not all debt is necessarily bad. Not all debt is necessarily good, right? So when we talk about money being debt, somebody says, no, all debt is bad. Okay, well then give me all of your dollar bills because they're all debt. Somebody says, well, that doesn't make any sense. No, it does make sense. It's real. It says right there on the money, and everybody knows that if you do any research into this economy, you will very quickly discover that it is a debt-based economy. Therefore, dollar bills are a form of good debt, right? You would like to have more of that kind of debt, right? So U.S. dollar bills are a form of debt, right? Getting your mind wrapped around that idea, although it's very bizarre, is important for you to be able to succeed because you can then understand that dollar bills in and of themselves over time lose value. It's important for you to take those paper dollar bills and put them in appreciating assets, things that go up. Dollars don't go up in value, right? So we want to put our dollars into something that is going to rise in value. And far too often, the banks and the financial institutions, they are more than willing to leave us indebted over things that really don't go up in value. Let me give you a couple of examples. And I don't mean to step on your toes out there if you're listening to this today, but these are some hard things that need to be said, about the money situation. So for example, if you're the kind of person who needs a new car all the time, every 2 or 3 years, and you're financing that debt, well, if you have a business or you have a job where that car is really required, then that might be a form of good debt. But if not, if it's just merely to keep up with the Joneses, then that would be a perfect example of bad debt. If you go out and spend $10,000 on a brand new wardrobe because you feel like it, and you put it on the credit card, that's an example of bad debt. But if you need that wardrobe in order to work your job, or maybe it's part of your career or whatever the case might be, then that might be an example of good debt because you're going to make more money having that wardrobe. If you go to college and you have no clue what you want to study, you just want to go get a degree because everybody else in your school is getting a degree, and then you go get the degree and then you end up not using the degree because you ended up doing something else, that's a perfect example of bad debt, right? But if you go get a degree because you want to increase your marketability and your skill set, and you do it specifically to go out and get a good job, and then you pay off that debt over time with that new job, then that's an example of good debt. So debt can be good, debt can be bad. It's important to know the difference. Now, we have actually created a very simple 5-page PDF report called How to Pay Off Debt Fast, 5 Steps to Debt Freedom. You can download that completely free on our website. Just go to our website and click on the Resources tab right there on the top menu and click on the Debt Freedom 101 button, or you can just go to our website. Just go to ftmdaily.com/debt, and you can download that PDF report right there. So if you're looking to break free financially, one of the first things to do is to really learn the difference between good debt and bad debt and realize that everywhere you look is nothing but debt. The money that you're paid, the paycheck that you get, everything around you is debt. So this idea of somehow getting out of debt or being free from debt is a complete joke, unless you're just going to completely move away from the US dollar, because again, the dollar is a debt-based system. So be careful not to get in this mindset of, I'm going to have no debt and all debt is bad in every way, shape, or form, because that's how this economy works, right? That's how this economy works. I'm not saying the debt is good. I'm not saying that debt is always bad. I'm simply saying that it is a fact of life, and we have to understand it if we want to be financially free. All right, so that's step number 1. Let me give you another one here. I got 7 of these I wrote down this morning I want to share with you. Number 2 is to know your options when it comes to financial freedom. Now, when we say financial freedom, we probably think of someone who doesn't have to work at a job because he has enough money to take care of himself, right? Without a job, right? So knowing your options, how are you going to create that money or that income in order to be free from a job, so to speak? Well, it's important for you to know the 3 different types of income sources. Believe it or not, there are only 3 sources of income. They only come from 3 places. Number 1, and here they are. If you're taking notes, write this down. Number 1 is paper assets. So paper assets throw off income. If you put money into the stock market, into a dividend-paying stock, you're actually buying a paper certificate, aren't you? You're an investor in the company, but it's a piece of paper in essence. And so because of that, you may receive a dividend. So you receive cash flow from that. You could also receive capital gains if the stock price goes up. Paper is also things like bonds, CDs, money markets, and all of these other types of financial instruments that are really paper, but they do provide cash flow through interest or dividends or whatever the case might be. The second form of, or the second income stream, I should say, is from real estate. Real estate is one of the 3 areas that throw off income. So if you buy a piece of real estate, you can rent it out and earn income, right? So taking on debt to buy maybe buy a piece of affordable housing, or a good bread and butter house in your neighborhood to rent out, that can be an example of good debt. So you have paper, real estate, and what's the third one? The third one is business. So you can either go work for someone else's business who is providing value in the community, or you can start your own business. It could be a part-time business, a side business, maybe you moonlight on the side. But either way, money comes or flows from 3 different sources: paper assets, real estate, and business, or what we might say business activity. Now, I encourage you to develop income streams from all 3 of these, right? It's important to have diversified income streams. And by the way, among these 3 areas of income, there are many different little income streams that you can create from each one of them, right? So with a business activity, for example, you don't just have to start a business or necessarily, even be an employee at a business. You could actually invest into a local business, right? And put your money to work. So there's all different kinds of ways to think about real estate, paper assets, and business activity when it comes to income streams. The key, though, is to know where those income streams, what those sources are, and then to begin developing them for your own family and diversifying them across all three. All right, so we've already gone over number one, which is to learn the difference between good debt and bad debt. Number two, know your options about your different income sources that you can create. All right, so there's two. Let's do number three. Number three is to consider upgrading your skill set, to specialize. Maybe you are in a job, but that job is just really not going anywhere. I'll give you a perfect example. Let's say that you are in a field such as construction. Let's say that you are a construction worker. You're swinging a hammer every day, and you're busy doing a lot of things, and maybe you're interfacing even with customers, and you've learned a lot of things as a person in the construction business. Well, if you're in that business and you're not making the kind of money that you would like to make, then you can consider looking at some sort of periphery business that uses that same skill set, but maybe you have to specialize a bit more and you'll make more money. Let me tell you something that's very hot in parts of my own community is people who are able to install the Internet of Things technology into homes. Many people are taking their homes now and upgrading them. They're trying to make their homes smart. Many rich neighborhoods across the country are really kind of computerizing their homes. And whenever those things break down, they need people to come and work on them. Well, if you specialize in something like that, you are going to be part of the future, right? You're going to be a part of that wave of the future. As more people move into the smart home technology, the Internet of Things, you could take your understanding of going into somebody's house and installing something or fixing something, and you could just tweak your skill just ever so slightly to be able to become relevant in this 21st century. Now, there are all kinds of examples we could give. We don't have time to go through all the different ideas, but the point is that for you to consider upgrading your skill set, that could be, going back to school for another year, maybe going to some sort of technology school, maybe learning computer coding, whatever the case might be. There are so many ways for you to upgrade your skill set, especially computer coding. In fact, that's one of the key areas for the future, being able to understand different types of computer languages, understanding network security, internet security. All of these things are huge, and they're going to continue to be huge in the future. So consider upgrading your skill set if you want to achieve a better financial situation and eventually financial independence. All right, so there's number three, upgrade your skill set. Let's move to number four. Stop trying to keep up with the Joneses. Oh boy, howdy, isn't this one a big one? I mean, it really is. Many people don't understand the difference between their wants and their needs, right? Their needs and their wants sometimes get convoluted because we live in a time where credit is so easy and people can afford the finest things. I tell you, this is a perfect example. I was recently out at a public gathering, and I was simply astonished by the amount of perceived wealth that I saw. People wearing fine clothes and people driving brand new cars. But when you look at the actual numbers of the economy, I mean, I'm an economist, so I look at that stuff, and I know better. I know most people who look rich are not rich. I know that most people that you see who have a nice new car, or maybe they have new clothes, or maybe their kids are wearing fine clothes, that does not necessarily mean that if they lost their job, that they wouldn't be out on the street in 2 months, right? So don't be fooled by that. And unfortunately, we are creatures of habit, and we are very moldable in our minds. And so when we see other people enjoying things that we feel that we could enjoy as well, we don't really tend to think about our wants versus our needs. We just go for it. And this, unfortunately, kind of self-perpetuates a cycle that leaves us on this treadmill, right? We always need something new. We always need the latest gadgets. One of the smartest things you can do is turn off your television. You know, one of the practices that my family implemented early on, and I think this is just a very simple one, but I think it was very effective, is when the commercials came on the television, we would mute them, right? I think that's a smart idea. Muting the commercials, not letting all of those ads just pour into your children's head and into your head, right? I thought that was a smart idea. And I've implemented that with my own family. And even better, how about just turning the television off, right? Because again, that box that sits in your home is designed to get you to go out and spend money. I mean, that's what it's for, right? The corporations that create channels, the shows that are on the television. I can't tell you how many people are influenced by television when it comes to their finances, and we end up looking like the tube, right? We end up wanting to dress like people on television. It's just one of these things that's very dangerous if you're trying to seek out financial independence. You've got to think independently. You've got to think outside the box. You can't be part of the herd if you want to break free financially. All right, I think I've said enough there. So stop trying to keep up with the Joneses. The Joneses are broke, so don't try to keep up with them, okay? So that's number 4. Let's move on to number 5. We got 7 here. Let's move on to number 5. Now, this one's a really, really big one. It may be controversial, partially. But if you want to stay financially independent, or you want to become financially independent, try to avoid the medical industrial complex, and I'm going to say it, I may have to bite my tongue afterwards, and the college industrial complex. All right? So these 2 areas can be a huge, huge drain upon your financial life. I've met so many people over the years who have been totally destroyed financially because an unexpected event sent them to the hospital, or something happened and they ended up giving a whole bunch of money to the medical industrial complex, right? To the hospitals and to the doctors and all of this. And it can be so outrageous, the money that you can spend. Now, those mistakes you can protect yourself from through insurance. I mean, you can't prevent every single accident, but what you can do is you can try to live a healthy lifestyle. And I think this is one of the things that financial independence really demands in this age of outrageous medical costs, is that if you want to be financially free, one of the smartest things you can do is live healthy, right? Take your vitamins and try to eat good foods and try to stay lean and try not to, go overboard in abusing your body. There's so many ways to abuse our body today with all of the corporate food that we have, all of the various types of vices that are available to us. And if we have a little bit of disposable income, then we can really, wreak some havoc on our body. And over time, of course, you're going to have to pay the piper for that, aren't you? You're going to have to show up to the doctor and take more pills and take more of this and that and take more treatments and all of this. Well, one of the ways to avoid that is to keep yourself healthy. So honestly, that's one of the steps. Another step is to really sit down and consider college. Now, I'll tell you this. Both my wife and I have gone to college. We both are using our degrees in some form or fashion, right? So they have come in handy. But I have met a lot of people over the years who ended up in college, and they didn't end up using their college degree, or they end up in college but then they don't finish, or whatever the case might be. College sometimes becomes an automatic default for people, and they think that if they go to college, they'll be successful, and if they don't go to college, they won't be successful. And we know that that is just clearly not true. If you look at people like Bill Gates or Steve Jobs, you go back and you look at some of the most brilliant men, they did not quite do the traditional route, going to high school, then going to college, and then going on to become, mega wealthy. So, every single child doesn't necessarily have to go to college. Sometimes they have something else that's a better use of their time, right? So I would say that really sit down and think about that. Instead of just blindly putting away money for college, just blindly doing it. What is your child? What does he really want to do with his life, right? Does he really want to go to college? Is he going to college because his friends are going to college? Is he going there because you want him to go? Let's think about this a little deeper and protect ourselves and our finances from these huge money drains that oftentimes don't pay off the way that we had hoped. So just some more critical thinking, I think, on the college industrial complex would be wise for modern American parents and future students. All right, so that's number 5. Try to avoid the medical and college industrial complex if possible. All right, and I'm not saying don't go to college. I'm saying make sure you know why you're going if you're going, right? Don't go there to blow off, money. It's a terrible place to blow money. Okay, now the next step, we got 2 more here. Number 6. This is a really important one. Write down your short-term and long-term goals. Now, instead of just saying that and saying you should do that and move on to the next one, I'm going to give you a real specific thing. Today, sit down and write down 3 goals that you want to achieve in the next 90 days. 3. Write them down. You may already be moving towards them, but it's more important to write them down. So take 3 things that you want to accomplish over the next 90 days. They don't have to be something huge. They don't have to write a whole book or, travel around the world, but simple things. Right? I need to go clean out that garage, or I need to save $1,000, or I need to, and you fill in the blank. Have 3 of those, write them down, and every morning when you wake up, look at that list. In addition to writing down 3 short-term goals, write down maybe 3 long-term goals. I think it's important for us to have short-term goals and long-term goals. I have a piece of paper that I look at on a regular basis that has 3 short-term goals of 90 days. I have 90 days to accomplish these 3 things. And whenever I reach one, I scratch it off, and I can't tell you how good it feels. It still feels good years later. And then I add another one. So I always keep 3 short-term goals in front of me. And then I also have long-term goals that I'm working towards. And if you keep your mind focused in this direction, then you will have more focus in your life and you will begin to meet those goals. So consider making some financial goals for yourself. Maybe a quick 90-day goal. Sit down, write it down, look at it on a regular basis, and make it happen. All right. And then, so that's number 6. Write down your short-term and long-term goals. All right. And let's finish out with one last one. I tell you, this one's last on today's list, but it's certainly not last in the order for sure. And that is to live generously towards others. Generously towards others. I got to be honest. Part of the beauty of being financially independent is the ability to give. It makes you feel good, in addition to making the person, the recipient, feel good as well. One of the things that I love to do is if I'm in a store, for example, I'll give you a perfect example. I was in a grocery store not too long ago, and I saw a woman who she did not have a wedding ring on, and she had about 3 kids with her. She did not look very rich, and her children certainly looked impoverished as well. I walked up to her, and I handed her a $20 bill, and I just said, "Here you go." Right? Here you go. God bless you. And I walked away. And I turned the corner and I kind of peered back, and she had this look of just absolute awe on her face. And, that $20 bill meant nothing to me. It meant nothing. I mean, I didn't even notice it was missing. But to her, it made all the difference in the world. All the difference in the world. Give creatively. Find people who are in need and help them. I don't want to personally tell you the things that I do, because the reason why I do the things that I do is for a heavenly reward, right? I think in terms of eternity. So whenever I give for that purpose. You may not be that way. You may think differently, but that's how I view it. So I don't want to spill the beans on everything that I'm doing, but what I do is specifically to help other people. It makes me feel good, but I also believe that what goes around comes around, and that there will be a day of reckoning whenever everything that we've done on this earth is examined. Financial independence is not just for you to consume upon your own lusts, but instead for you to be a channel of blessing to other people. I truly believe that God gives money to those who he trusts. And if he believes that you will do good with that money, and if he believes that you will take care of those around you who need help, that he will give more to you as a conduit. All right, so let's run through these real quickly again. The 7 ideas that I wrote down here about financial independence. Number 1, learn the difference between good debt and bad debt. Number 2, know your options when it comes to creating income streams. Know that they only come from 3 sources: paper assets, business activity, and real estate. Try to diversify your income streams among those 3. Number 3, upgrade your skill set. Specialize in something. Number 4, stop trying to keep up with the Joneses by realizing the difference between your wants and your needs. Number 5, try to avoid the medical industrial complex through good, healthy living, and the college industrial complex without a good plan in place ahead of time. Don't go blow money at college just to go see how it feels. It's a bad place to blow money. Number 6, write down your short-term and long-term goals. Very, very important that you write down the things that you want to accomplish. And number 7, live generously towards others. It makes financial independence even sweeter. Don't forget, you can download our completely free debt PDF report online, ftmdaily.com/debt. And if you're not familiar with our 5 levels of financial freedom, I encourage you to go check it out. You can go to ftmdaily.com/5 levels. Right there, you can read the 5 steps to financial freedom my wife, my family, and I actually took to break free financially.